Hey there YouTube, before I get on with this video I have some pimpage to conduct. There is a very beautiful musical project currently available on MySpace, partially created by someone many of you I'm sure will be familiar with, a certain wild-haired Transformer reviewing Irishman who recently returned to the YouTubes. Links in the crotch bar or the blowjob bar or whatever the hell you want to call it. Well done YouTube for that reposition. I really like that, and I will be thinking up as many perverse and off-colour names for it as I can conceive of. Be assured. The name of the musical project is Crimpdust, and believe me when I tell you it is astoundingly beautiful. Their output is very non-mainstream. It is highly experimental, conceptual work, and the beauty of these tracks has to be heard to be believed. It's the kind of thing I would gladly listen to all day long. Frankly, I think it's the kind of stuff that should be pumped into workplaces just to make people feel inspired and uplifted, and just to put them in touch with themselves. That's what the music seems to do. It's very beautiful. Anyway, enough with that. This video is going to be in response to OminousVoice's recent video, Moments of Malaise. And I think, again, links in the blowjob bar. And I think everyone who watches this video will know, to a certain degree, where you're coming from, Rob. I think they will have some personal experience of the state that you describe. I don't think there are many people who don't experience these periods of psychological and emotional darkness. The problem is that everyone's experience of these things is entirely subjective, and the outcome is ultimately subjective, depending upon how they respond to them and what they do with the state, with the situation. I mean, sometimes it's one of those things it's difficult to talk about without procrastinating. You can't talk about it without making reference to your own personal experience, so that's really all one can do in these situations, because giving advice would be it would be self-superior and smug and presumptuous, and it would be largely unhelpful because it wouldn't talk to your experiences. All anyone can do, I think, is talk about what their own experience of these states is, these moments of hopelessness or of depression, and talk about how they respond. As you well know, Rob, I've been going through the early part of this year. I went through an extended period of depression for various different reasons. Lots of things sort of building up together. There are lots of sort of kicks to the teeth and punches to the stomach which seem to be building up together. And the way I respond to these kinds of situations is to have these incredible swings of emotion. I will dive down into incredible blackness where there doesn't seem to be any way out, and then soar up into these moments of ridiculous levity where everything seems possible and nothing seems forbidden. It's really quite strange. And those, ironically, I think those are the moments that are more dangerous for me, the moments of the levity that tends to come after the moments of darkness, because I do things in the moments of levity. I make decisions that are extreme, which seem like brilliant ideas at the time. They seem like wonderful ideas, but they never fucking are. They always have consequences. As an example, a couple of months back, what I was thinking about doing, because I was running away, basically. I was thinking of signing up to teach English voluntarily in some very, very far away place where nobody could contact me, preferably where very few people spoke English, and just staying there for a year or two until things had quieted in my own mind. And it took somebody wiser than myself to point out the fact that I was running away from it. But yeah, that tends to be how I respond to the darkness. It's I do things that are life-changing. I use it as an impetus for doing things, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, because it's very difficult to make considered decisions when you're in that place. I mean, it's not the problem with psychological conditions or emotional conditions is that they're very difficult to have an objective perspective on when you are in the midst of them. You can't have an objective perspective on your own mind. I don't think it's possible. And when those conditions colour perception, as depression always does, depression, even the brief moments of it, it colours your perception to the degree that within those bubbles, those little black bubbles that do burst after a while, in my experience anyway, it's difficult to see anything out. It's difficult to see any way out of that septum. You can just blunder around blindly, ramming into the walls and ending up in the same place again. And then it disperses. All of a sudden, you'll go to sleep, or you'll change your environment. You'll go somewhere else, go for a walk or whatever, and it will disperse. That's my experience of it anyway, and it's really rather strange. Those are the moments when you start to have perspective on what you do and say within the moments of blackness, and that's when it starts to seem absurd. But I think what is important is it's nothing to beat yourself up about. It's a fucking English thing. We English are very, very bad at this. We tend to berate ourselves horrendously for feeling things to an extreme. Especially things like depression. We don't have any problems when other parts of our anatomy malfunction and calling that a disease. But when the brain malfunctions, we seem to have a certain skepticism about it, this ridiculous attitude whereby it's like, oh, pull yourself together, or stop being so self-pitying. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful at all. I mean, these are very genuine conditions that tend to have biological causes. It's our biology, the biology of our brain and our hormones, etc., responding to external stimuli. And yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for trying to promote a more positive outlook, for trying to coax people out of it. That's true, but there are ways and means of doing that, and you have to be very subtle and considered about it. Just saying, oh, pull yourself together, which tends to be the standard English response, isn't helpful at all. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't even acknowledge the condition. And I think Paul got that funk said it best, actually, which is time. It's trite and it's cliche, and it's not what anybody wants to hear when they're in the midst of the depression. It really isn't. It's the worst thing you can say to someone, because their ultimate reaction will be, fuck off, I will be feeling like this forever. But time does change perspective. It lends scope. It softens and heals. It's a really strange thing. And the funny thing is, those moments can be productive. I mean, it may not look... It's difficult to look at it that way now, but the moments of absolute darkness can be constructive, because it shows you how far you can go, how deep you can go, and how you respond to those states and those environments. And out of it can come great creativity. I'm speaking for myself. Again, another thing that I do, if I find myself slipping into those moments, it's very rare. I mean, it has to be something really quite profound that does it. This year has provided a couple of quite profound things that have a sort of together in concert taken me down into the dark places. Um, you, what I find is that I hurl myself into things because I can't just sit and fester. I can't do it. My brain won't let me do it. I will hurl myself into something creative, and as a result of that, I've written this year 2 plays, a poetry compilation, and I'm just finishing a short story compilation, which is the most I've ever written in so short a period. And it's all as a result of being in these dark places and trying to explore them and what they mean to me. And as a result of them, because I've never been that deep before, I don't get depressed. I honestly don't. I don't. When I'm in a sort of a general state, I don't get depressed. I don't sort of lapse into depression arbitrarily. There has to be something grand, some sort of event that does it. And even then I do rise out of it again. It just takes a while. But the production, the things that have been created, are as a result of descending into those depths. And it's taught me things about myself. I feel like a better human. Okay, it's impossible to see this when you're in the midst of it. It is impossible. But as a result of being down there, I've learned things about myself as a man, as a human being, that I wouldn't be without. They have taught me things about the way I function and relate to the world and other human beings and my own state, my own condition. And ultimately, I think that's very productive. Very productive indeed. I think it's something that... It's a formative experience that we need, that human beings do need. But ultimately, I think the most anyone can say to you in terms of, I mean, not even advice. I'm not interested in giving people advice because I can only say what would work for me in this situation. But I know that creating things, and you are a very creative chap. I know you can write rather well. For me, it would be a matter of hurling myself into something, a project, a really big immersive project that would eat up almost all of my attention. That's really all I feel I can say on the matter. I'm really wary of going too far into this because I can't. It is your subjective experience. It will be very personal, based upon your own state of mind. So I am very wary of going too deep. But yes, all I can say is I certainly hope that this and all of the other responses that you get help